Hello, guys. It's me, Sean Bischoff, General Manager for Triumph. This is episode 6 of Together. It's our podcast. It's a cast that you listen to on your pod. Friendly reminder, if you don't have a pod or an iPod, I don't know if any of you guys still use an iPod. I retired mine recently, as a matter of fact. You can actually check the stream out on twitch.tv/livethebattle. We stream every Tuesday. We also upload to our YouTube channel, of course. Make sure to subscribe there. And pretty much all the audio platforms that you can imagine, most notably, obviously, iTunes and Spotify. If you use somebody that's not iTunes and Spotify, prayers. Today, we have a very cool guest. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for many years. His name is Justin Hughes. He's the Assistant General Manager for the Vancouver Titans. For those of you that are uninitiated, the Vancouver Titans is Vancouver's Overwatch League team. He's also the owner of Second Wind, one of the most popular and successful Overwatch Contenders team of all time, and I'm really excited to have him on the show today. It's been a long time since we caught up, so without further ado, I just want to get into the show. Justin, what's up, buddy, man? How are you?
Not too much. Just got some home repairs done.
Yeah, I saw.
Prepping for the really finishing up the off season. I think most teams are really finishing up the rosters right now as well. So we're about to hit the couple, maybe a month or so of calm before really the season starts kicking off.
Yeah.
So
I saw you guys just announced this last week a few additions to your team. That's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, we ended up announcing Fried from Atlanta, Fire from Atlanta, and then Linkster from Houston. Mm-hmm. So got 6 on the roster so far. 1 more to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's it going to be?
Well, I don't know if I can say that quite yet.
Okay, well, fair enough, dude.
Have to wait on an announcement for that one.
Of course. Yeah, man, I'm interested to see all the roster announcements. There was like a rumor, and again, I left Overwatch, so now I've completely detached myself from the scene almost entirely. So like my knowledge of what's going on is near zero, in fact. I saw a rumor recently about the league maybe postponing into the spring. Till April, I think specifically was the rumor. I would understand if it was postponing and it wasn't public yet. There's probably a reason for that, but it seems like it's not being postponed. Does it look like everything's pretty much going to start normal time this year?
That's actually, I don't quite know. I don't believe
That's great.
I don't have a start date yet, so I don't really have an answer on that one.
Yeah,
although
I'm curious.
If it was delayed, I think it would be understandable. There's quite a few things going on as of late.
Yeah,
been an awkward year.
Yeah, it's definitely been an awkward year. I would say last year for you is pretty wild.
Yeah,
if I could sum it up that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's interesting because I heard this rumor about Overwatch League postponing until April. Probably, I would assume for bringing back coming up next season, starting off at a LAN situation in the spring. But then the CDL is not going to be postponed. So I thought it was weird, but maybe the rumor was just wrong.
I actually have no idea. So
that's okay. Must be wrong.
I could believe it, but I don't really. I'm not too sure that we have a start date yet.
Yeah. I guess they're probably still finalizing stuff. Do you guys? Well, I don't want to ask you for all this insider information. I just wonder like what will happen this year. Obviously, COVID last year affected everything. Yeah, you guys came in May. And obviously, like that means your entire Overwatch League experience, as someone who was in Contenders for a long time, has been completely online. So, like, I know that's a little bit awkward, but for the listeners, obviously, I know a lot about you. But can you give me a little bit of backstory, your history so far in Overwatch, and why you're on the show today?
Back in game launched in 2016. A couple of my friends wanted me to play, and I ended up liking it / grinding it a bit more than they probably did. Ended up competing a bit, actually. I didn't make it too high. I think my peak was High Masters, and that was about it. One of my former teammates, Zaxel, ended up asking me to manage his Open Division team, which ended up being Second Wind. At the time, it was called something else. I ended up telling them they needed to rebrand if I was going to join in. So we rebranded it to Second Wind. Had a unsuccessful first Open Division season, and then our second Open Division season we ended up qualifying for Contenders, and made not the greatest run for our first season, but then after that, our second season was a lot more successful. We got third place. Then we've been consistently third or fourth in contenders since then. Then, of course, we transitioned into Overwatch League this past May, and it's been a bit different ride than I thought it'd be. But altogether, it's been pretty good. I think it's been a good experience. But hopefully, transitioning into next year with the same way the rest of my career has been. One unfortunate season of Open Division, one unfortunate season of Contenders, and then hopefully Al will be the same. It'll just be one unfortunate season, and then converting into much more successful. Much more successful in terms of competitiveness. I think we're leaning towards. I think we can definitely pull it off, but it'll definitely be a bit of a. It'll be some work. I think we're more than capable of being able to accomplish that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, well, just to start off, I'd say like the roster that you guys are building, and I don't know, you're seventh. I don't know if it's going to be making a big comeback or what, but you could steal him.
Albert,
if you can get Albert on the team.
So that'll be a big pickup. I don't know if
maybe you could bring back Josh Nissan. No, I mean, your guys' team should be better off this year. I think like a lot of the criticism that you guys got last season was really unfair because obviously, I mean, you know your situation better than anyone. It's part of the reason why I'm bringing you on is to talk about your guys' sort of experience. But, you know, you came in with the core from Contenders sort of last second in a very, I don't want to call it makeshift, but it was basically a makeshift situation where Vancouver needed to fill the roster, and you guys were obviously sort of a legendary sort of collection of players in the North American contender scene. So, you know, to expect you guys to come in playing online with players in Europe on high paying against teams that have been built for years. I mean, it's, you know, it's like expectations were way too high, I think, for you guys. And it was really unfair, I think, the way a lot of casual fans perceived you guys.
I think given the situation, we actually potentially overperformed because we took for one, we didn't drop any maps to Boston. We ended up taking
that's a good measurement.
We ended up taking a few match wins from, there was one from Dallas, one from ATL. But I don't think anyone coming into that would have expected that we would have taken a match off of ATL. So I think we actually, to a certain extent, performed better than what many would have expected.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, given your guys' circumstances, I think you guys did perfectly fine. And like that type of transition is so difficult to make for a team like yours, and to do so on short notice and to still be able to compete at a high level. I mean, it's all good. Yeah. And I think a lot of people I think everyone in North America is aware of Second Wind and what I would consider. I've said this to you before. I think. But I've never really gone into it. I really believe Second Wind was sort of like the North American runaway. You know, I really think like maybe because you're part of it, you don't really realize like the impact that Second Wind's had in North American Overwatch. But like you guys were like the unfunded underdogs that were just always winning for like years, right? Like nobody could stop you. And you know, it was
actually kind of surprising towards the end there because we actually had some people who turned down some academy offers to stay with us because they wanted to win, which I thought was pretty cool. And I never thought that would be the situation. We always had a lot of people that would be leaving for XYZ reason. And towards the end there, it was definitely humbling to experience people who actually opted to stay unpaid just so that they could win. And they believed that Second Wind was the best option for them. But sorry, I completely cut you off. But
no, it's okay. I mean, I think you're right. Like, I think that's one of the things that made it so special. It's like people for one reason or another, the team that you built, everyone liked being on the team and liked, you know, and had success together, you know, regardless of all the bullshit that you guys had to go through between like you know how Contenders is, man. I mean, we don't have to go too crazy into it, but like Contenders is it's a tough battlefield, man. It's a hard way to make a living. Like, so if people would literally like opt out of contract offers with Overwatch League academies just to play with you guys as a team and as a family, and it worked out, I think, for everyone involved ultimately.
Yeah.
Obviously.
There was definitely in terms of being a difficult scene, it was definitely interesting at times. I'm not going to say who, but one of the in our first successful season, one of the academy team coaches messaged us saying, why are you guys even bothering to try? You're not an academy team. You won't be able to stay next year anyway. Because it was like you get auto-relegated if you're not an academy team at the time. And I read that, and I was just like, what? What do you mean, why would we even try? It's like,
coach from the academy team?
Yeah. I just remember reading that, and I was like, what do you mean? We're here to win.
Yeah, I'm just trying to rack my brain what kind of idiot said that to you, but I mean, it's a tough scene. Like, Contenders is so tough to be successful over a long period of time. Like, that's what I discovered. You know, I was working at Contenders alongside you for 3 years. Like, it's really hard to have a team that can be successful for 3, 4, 5 seasons. And even now, the structure is so different. You have like different teams every single month, so it's like even more of a battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what you guys did is like you created a team environment where everybody wanted to play with each other no matter what. And you put teams down. Like, it was like every time you guys were up against Fusion University or any of the academies, XL2, any of them, most of whom have obviously disbanded now. There's only like one academy remaining, I think, in NA, right? So, you know, you guys were always beating them. I mean, you guys beat Triumph too, the last normal season of Contenders before you guys went to the league. And I didn't even feel bad about that loss either, because it's like you guys are literally just like, what do you expect? You're going to play against Senka win, you're probably going to lose. Like, that's how it was. Like, just like everyone expected to kind of lose because you guys would just beat people and then like laugh about it. You know what I mean? It was like you guys were just, you were like the North American runaway man. And I think a lot of casual fans, especially a lot of Eastern fans, like obviously South Korean fans, even Chinese fans, I don't think they have any idea like the relevance of Second Wind. And when you guys obviously got, you know, the opportunity to join Vancouver Titans when they were in a pinch, you know, I think a lot of people didn't think you guys earned it, but you guys absolutely at that point had earned it for sure.
We were actually in talks with them prior to that about becoming potentially their academy team, right. But that was like that ended up panning out a bit different. But
yeah, obviously,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you bring up like the old Second Wind. I'm trying to remember when you said prior to the team being Second Wind in Open Division, the team Zaxel and Flubby, they had a team, and I'm trying to remember the name. I think it was Six Backpacks, wasn't it?
Oh well, that was our LAN edition. We didn't want to compete. We didn't want to compete under.
You guys were already Second Wind at that time. Yeah, that's true.
We had we were gosh, what was it before I came on? I don't know if it was 200 milligram players or 200 milligram. It was a Caffrey meme.
It was a meme, yeah.
Yeah, but when I joined on, I told them, it's like, we're changing this name. This isn't going to be our team.
I would sign off on that executive decision. I think that was a good idea on your part. But I remember when Second One first came around, I was with Bye Week, which is another sort of like glorified team, like a meme team at the time. And you guys were really bad. Like, the team was really bad. The original version, from a Contender's perspective, you know, and a lot of the guys, obviously you and Flovey, like people from that team ended up going on to do other roles, you know, being coaches and stuff. But the team at the time is not good. And I think a lot of people discredited. And I think like to go from being in that position to being sort of like a team coming up from Open Division that nobody really respected to then, you know, rebuilding and having this vision to build like this dominant North American team, it's like really impressive. So it's something for the record books for sure anyway, in the Overwatch scene.
That was also actually an interesting time period just because people messaged me saying like, oh, you canned the whole roster? And I'm like, no, I didn't. Over half of them left.
Yeah.
So it was
did people leave just because they didn't want to compete anymore? Or they just didn't feel like they were good enough, like together, or what?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. People didn't feel that they were good enough together. Some people didn't want to play with certain players, and it kind of just naturally dissolved to the point that I think I had like 2 players left, and 2 or 3 players left, and it was just kind of just like, okay, this is a full rebuild. And then it was kind of just for the best for everyone. There was really only like 2 people that I really kicked from that roster after really doing the rebuild, but I think it worked out for those two people regardless. One of them was Flubby, so
Yeah, right. Obviously worked out for him,
yeah.
Flubby's head coach now still for Vancouver, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, look, it worked out ultimately. And there's a lot of people back in 2018 that have taken completely different career paths. So it is what it is. I don't think anyone has any hard feelings around like roster moves and stuff and at that level. But yeah, man. So I one thing I'd love to talk about, man, because you and I both have had a lot of experience in Contenders. And we could talk a little bit about Vancouver today. Obviously, you work for Vancouver now. You got out of the pit, which is great. But like, I think something that you and I share is a broad experience in Contenders. And so I wonder, like, for the success that you've had with Second Wind specifically prior to Vancouver, I always wanted to ask you and talk to you more in depth about, like, what's your philosophy in team building? How were you guys able to be successful in such a harsh environment like in Contenders? And it's a very broad question, I know, and I'm putting you kind of on the spot, but
mechanics first is always the big one. We were, up until profiles became private, our main tool for actually scouting players was leaderboard and just looking at people's stats when they were in comp queue. That's actually predominantly what it was at the beginning, and then later on when things transitioned kind of to hidden career profiles, well, for one, we had to try out a broader amount of players, and it was still just the same idea of just like mechanics or stats first, where it didn't matter so much if a player didn't know how to play as a team, because that's coachable, that's fixable. What I can't really fix is if you can't hit that shot. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if the whole team is synergized with you and you're in the right position, everyone's in the right position, but you miss your shot. It's unlucky.
Yeah.
And then really that's kind of where the team always was. A lot of mechanically gifted players that either didn't have the team experience to be synergistically good at the game or make it onto other teams. And always, like, very consistently, our first month of Contenders was always horrible, or not horrible, but we'd always have to make like one or two changes. Generally speaking, it's either players that we would assume that when you have a lot of mechanically gifted players, some will and won't be able to convert into that team environment properly. And you'll swap them out for other players that are a little bit more either mechanically better and can synergize better. But as long as they're mechanically good enough, that's really the only point towards... God, I'm losing myself. Sorry.
It's okay. I didn't. It's a big question,
Yeah.
What I always felt like you guys were good at doing was like you're saying, like you guys have always, even now at Vancouver, I think what you guys are very good at doing, you and your cabal, as it were, you guys seem to be very good at always finding the best mechanical players, the people that are best at the game, rank 1, 4700ers who maybe have mixed reputation or no team experience.
Yes.
And you guys would find those guys, and you would find like some players at other orgs or other teams or other coaches maybe were too scared to even talk to, right? Too scared to touch, too scared to waste their time on, right? Like these really talented players that don't have the team experience, and you guys would bring them in, and you have this environment apparently that I found fascinating, that like you turn them into team players, what I mean? Which is like, it's like the next tier of coaching and development. It's like the ability to take players that are obviously super talented, which everyone can see with their own eyes, like if you're top 10 on the leaderboard all the time, like you're obviously talented, and figuring out how to put those guys into a program or a team where they can become a great teammate and start winning,
Yeah. And that's essentially what it is. There's definitely a broader sense of just like making sure you have you won't have personality clashes because along with just being a good teammate, there's you need to make sure everyone gets along. And really, the biggest part of this was controlling personalities. That's we have a lot of big personalities over history, and I think that's really something that's underrated that people really it's not something that people pay too much attention to in Contenders. There's a lot of people that are just not very good teammates, and they'll still get picked up for XYZ reason. Maybe they are just mechanically gods, but even if they are, there's certain people that even I wouldn't touch for the simple reason that you can be amazing, but if you're just a complete asshole to all your teammates, then what's the point?
Right.
And I think it's definitely something people need to pay more attention to, because even now there's like I don't want to go into that, but in Contenders there's a lot of players that are mechanically good enough, but they're tilters. They're very, very strong tilters, and there's sometimes scrims won't go too well because that person just decides that it's not their day, and you waste a whole 4 hours that day, and they're just throwing. And even though we did have a lot of personalities that may have had a tendency to be toxic in comp queue or whatever, when it came to actually scrimming, they made sure that they were actually there to improve. And if yes, we did also troll sometimes, but that's really if we were very obviously better than the scrim partner that we had, in which case then you're not going to learn too much anyway.
And that obviously happens a lot when you're a top team. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think like my experience in Contenders has been like, as time's gone on, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this. I'd like to get your take on this actually. As time's gone on, as academies have left the scene, as Overwatch League teams have, stopped, investing in Contenders directly. I almost said challengers, sorry. I got COD brain now.
Yeah.
I'm enlightened now. In Contenders, ever since the academy teams started investing less, and there's less and less, big orgs operating in North America specifically, it seems like it's a lot harder for these talented players coming up to get the resources or the appropriate environments to develop in their teams. And so it seems like now in Contenders, we have this huge problem of this lack of a developmental track for players that are coming up. And so it makes it harder for teams like yours or any other Overwatch League team to scout good talent from North America, because these guys in the scene aren't necessarily, being put in these good environments where they can develop to the next level.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think there's definitely, I think the biggest hit with Tier 2 in general really is a lack of these top tier coaches, or just environments that you really want to put your player in. Because there are some environments where, sure, you can pull a very good result, but do you really want to compete on that team if you really, really hate your teammates? It's not going to be a good environment for you regardless. Right. And I feel like there's a lack of people who really act to diffuse these situations. Which is to say, like, people, it's back to the controlling personalities. There's a lot of people that don't control personalities very well, and they end up having a very toxic team environment, which is not good for anyone. Or in general, there's also like, that's bad management, and then there's bad coaching, where we've actually had players come on to Second Wind where they said, "Oh, but this is what this person told me." And I'm like, forget everything they told you. That is completely wrong. That is not how we want you to play. And that actually happened quite a bit, especially one of our seasons that happened with quite like 2 or 3 of our players, where it was just like there was a month transitionary period where we were just like, what did they teach you? Don't do that anymore. Do this instead.
Yeah, I think I know the time period you're talking about as well.
Yeah. And I think it's not some these situations. I don't know if that they'll be fixed with money. Okay, actually, that's not true, because money in the scene will just bring back better coaching and better management in general. But I don't really know how to. I don't really see a way to find an easy fix for it. Just because even if money does come back into the scene, right now there's players that really there's a lacking in terms of staff and coaching that can really uphold the environment that you would want to emulate for an academy team.
Right.
You need some people to come back to the scene,
Yeah.
or there'd be a lot of development. It would feel like you were starting back, not from zero, but like there's definitely been a void, in my opinion, in terms of a lot of good coaches and management in tier 2.
Yeah.
And it shows with just like not lack of improvement, but lack of there's a lack of over there's not a lack of talent per se. There's a lack of talent that's complete. There's not too much.
Yeah.
There's always players that have a lot of things that you need to fix, and a lot of those are like prevalent for entire like seasons, and it's not getting fixed. And I don't know. It's a problem that's not easy to fix.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy to fix. Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, man.
No. Go ahead. I'm losing myself again. So
no, it's okay, man. Look, it's a big topic. This is something that I've always been passionate about, and even though like I'm not involved in Overwatch directly, it still feels like a baby to me. It still feels like something I care about, and I still pay attention. And I've definitely seen like the decline in leadership just from being in that position for so long. I've seen like less and less people around me. At the sort of the top level of contenders, and even you could argue in the league as far as Western leadership is concerned, right? Because the league is so dominated by Korean talent, Korean coaches, Korean management. So it's definitely been like this. I don't want to call it an exodus because it's not. I don't know. That's a cool word, and you used it earlier, so it's on the top of my head. But there's definitely been a decline in the amount of leadership, and I think you're correct. The way that you describe what's missing is like, in order for these guys to develop in the scene, in the amateur or semi-professional scene, you need to have people that not only know how to manage them, but how to coach them, right? It's all sort of wrapped up in this package of leadership. And I do think for it to, like, this is sort of, you're in this position in the league now where this is sort of like your problem to help solve. And I think about this all the time, like all the steps that it's going to take to solve this issue in the Overwatch scene. Because it seems like we'd probably be on better track if it weren't for how crazy this last year has gone with COVID and everything, and everybody working from home. I think it's made it a lot harder to have an impact in people's lives as a coach, or it's been a lot harder for Overwatch League teams to invest their time or money or their resources into academies, for example. There's like no academies now. I do think you have to find ways to put money back into the tier 2 scene of Overwatch, right? To support players in their journey of trying to play professionally. Like they need to be able to, pay rent or whatever. And be compensated for their time. And it takes like, how it is. Like if you're trying to play professionally, you're practicing at least 12 hours a day. If you're practicing 12 hours a day and your prize pool is $500 a month, that's not really worth it. The math doesn't add up. So in one way you have to invest more money into the scene, but we also have to bring up new leadership in the scene, which I think is like the biggest challenge. Because how do you even do that? Like, how do you even start to tackle that, man?
Unfortunately, I don't have many ideas on that. Because all I can think of is back when I started, and it was just like there was this like massive flow of managers in tier 3, and it was easy to filter through everyone and kind of know who. It was very easy. I'm sure you experienced the same thing. It was very easy to tell who would and wouldn't kind of just like move up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is kind of just like a larger top-down issue of maybe you do have more open tournaments where more organizations will want to participate, because that in itself will bring money back into the scene, and just from sheer exposure. But the more money in the scene maybe brings back old management that may have left that was very successful at what they did. There's also another one where are you maybe developing your own form of just like management and coaching in tier 3 itself, because it really does stem from tier 3. But that, I think this would be a very good time to hopefully transition into that, because a lot of the good coaches and players are going to come from former players, because these are the ones who know what kind of environment they want to work in. They know the issues that they need to solve, and there's been a lot of players that probably aren't going to make it this season, just to be completely frank.
Right.
And I think a lot of those personalities would work very well for either coaches or managers, and hopefully some of them look into it. It's I think that in itself will definitely help tier 2 far more than if all of them went back to contenders trying to play again.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few people in there that will just be like, that'll just elevate the scene just by opting to not be a player. But of course, always go after your passions, and maybe that's not the case, but
yeah, of course. No, I think you're right. I mean, I have this philosophy that like the best coaches are always ex-players. In every sport that's the case. Like there's no sport, for instance, where these legendary head coaches that you hear about for 30, 40 years, like winning championships, like they all used to be players. None of them were just like random people that were like, I want to coach a team. But like they all, like, I think to be a good coach in anything, I guess, in life, whether it's a game or a sport, it's like to be a good coach, you kind of have to have that ground level experience, right? You have to have put in the work yourself to understand how to, where a player's mind's at when they're competing, to understand what it's like to have like money on the lines, to actually be in that situation is what gets you the experience to be a good coach. So I believe that Overwatch specifically is a game that's in a very odd spot for developing leadership, because it's only been around for 4 or 5 years now. And there's this weird thing where for some reason in Overwatch, people think as soon as you turn 21 years old, you're way too old to compete. And so there's all these like people that are exiled from the scene and not able to really make money at a very young age. So they just decide to go to another game. Right? And this is something that I think is a big problem. Not the only problem, maybe not even the biggest problem, but it's a real issue, because a lot of people that could become coaches, a lot of smart players that I've met, that you've met, I'm sure, have gone on just to leave and go play in another game. Every new AAA title that comes out, it's like people leave. And, if the scene was stronger, maybe those people would stay, like you're saying, and like become really good coaches and help the next generation of players come up. But it's so hard to say. Yeah,
when it comes to the age thing, I think people overhype that far too much with saying like, "Oh, what's this new 18-year-old doing?" I mean, like, well, what is the 26-year-old doing? I mean, like, they're still playing the game. It's like it
blows my mind.
It's not like they turned 26 and they're just like, "Oh, my fingers." It's like they're fine. Man.
It really does blow my mind, especially now. Like I have experience in other games that was like been really valuable to me to understand that the age thing in Overwatch doesn't make any sense, dude.
Yeah.
Like, Overwatch compared to most FPS games is so not reflex heavy. Like your mechanical skill in Overwatch matters, I think, a lot less than your understanding of meta, your understanding of teamwork, your communication skills. Like if you look in CSGO, right, the top teams in the world are pretty much like 30-year-olds, right? Yeah. So imagine if they quit CS 10 years ago. That's 10 years of experience like out the window. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like if you're telling me a 30-year-old team could be the best CS team in the world, a bunch of 25, 30-year-olds, it just doesn't add up that you're too old once you turn 20 in Overwatch. If you look at Call of Duty, for example, you look at the team that won the championship last season, Dallas Empire. For those of you that are uninitiated, that team was like they had a couple young players on the team, but they also had Clayster and Crimsix on the team who are like 28 years old.
Yeah.
And I think that game is more reflex intensive. So what's it? What do you think it is about the age thing in Overwatch? Why do people freak out about age?
I actually have no idea. I've, to be honest, I didn't even look at people's ages when I trialed them. But I don't know. I don't think it really matters because I understand it mattering maybe when you're trying to come into the scene because maybe you don't have as much time to grind the game because you have another job, and that just makes sense. It's like you're doing something else, and kids do have a lot more time to just practice and grind the game. But if you're like a 26-year-old who's committing the same amount of time as a 16-year-old, there's no difference. It's like it doesn't make sense to me why things are so heavily biased towards these younger players. Like I said, there's definitely the time dynamic, but it really shouldn't be as much of a factor as people make it out to be.
Yeah, I don't think it is. It shouldn't be much of a factor, and I wonder if like this disposition towards younger talent, always trying to find younger talent. I wonder if it's one of the things that's negatively affecting the development of the younger talent, because I feel like there has to be some sort of direct relationship between this problem and the lack of coaches in the scene. But I don't know how. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that has something to do with it. Like I don't know if it's because players that are 20, 21 who stop getting opportunities or whatever, and I'm just throwing numbers out there. Yeah. Of course, we're talking in generalization. It's like they leave the scene before they gain the experience to become a good coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. It's very odd. And yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. It's like okay, let me, not to backtrack on what I said earlier, but it kind of does make sense for some of these like younger pickups because these are some players that were just on the age gate of not being old enough to play an OWL. Like those make sense to me. Like people who are just, it doesn't make sense that some players just age out of OWL. That doesn't make sense. But
right.
Some players are, on the contrary, aging into OWL because these are still players that Overwatch launched 4 years ago. These are all players that like started playing 4 years ago. Think like Speed or OG or Ultraviolet, who are all like 16, 17, who just aren't old enough to be an OWL, but realistically are good enough to be in it. Like when they turn 18, they're going to be very hot pickups. Like those are things that will make sense. They'll probably replace some older player that was an OWL that it doesn't even need to be anyone older. It could be someone who just was 19 and then was there the past season.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that is somewhat of the element of some people aging out per se, when it's not really, it doesn't have anything to do with their age. It's just these players that have been playing for as long as them are just aging into L.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think you might be right. Actually, you might be spot on. Like maybe it's not so much people are aging out at a young age. It's just that like the game is just now coming into like its first wave of like pure only Overwatch talent, right? Like before, most of the pros are obviously pros that came from other games. They played 4 or 5 years of whatever, who knows, TF2 or CS or something before coming to Overwatch, and the game is still relatively young compared to something like CS or Call of Duty. It's been around for 10 plus years. So maybe like really the aging out is just the aging in of the talent that will last until they're 30 maybe. Yeah, you might be right. That's probably a huge factor.
I think along with that though is sorry, I want to backtrack to something you said earlier.
Oh, it's okay.
Where a lot of these players are like leaving the scene to go to other AAA titles, which is where I want to say that it might not be at the level that I would hope it to be at, but if anyone's watching this that this applies to, I hope people consider the collegiate scene, because that's viable right now. Like those players got tryouts for OWL teams. Like it's not like they just went to collegiate and it was a retirement home. Like those players actually got tryouts, and I think far too many people see the collegiate scene as just like this retirement home where they go and they die off as a pro player, when that's not exactly what it is. As long as they keep grinding, they'll continue to be good. But I think players aging out on that end of things also would greatly benefit from considering considering collegiate, because that's something that they're now moving forwards in life in other aspects while also continuing to pursue Overwatch.
I've always encouraged like people that played under me in Overwatch to look into collegiate, because obviously like we've seen firsthand the success of programs like Maryville and Harrisburg specifically on creating like these really high level teams. I mean, these teams effectively could be competitive in Contenders. I would say there were Maryville rosters that I thought would be like top rosters in Contenders. You know, they were taking top, semi-pro players, giving them full rides to school or whatever. I do think like it. I really think collegiate will never be a path to pro per se. I don't think that you'll ever see one of these franchise leagues take the collegiate route of scouting talent from college only, like the way traditional sports is done. But I do think that if you're not playing professionally, if you're not in the Overwatch League, I really think you should consider, especially if you're of age and you can go to college, like take your talents to school, man. Like get yourself into college for free or something. You know what I mean? Or like I really think it's a good path, because you could still make it to the league ultimately if you're good enough.
And I actually think that certain players, well, it's not really a player thing. It's more so, I think if some of these collegiate programs start competing in Contenders, then you're kind of serving your dual purpose. Like you're in collegiate, you're getting an education, and you're in Contenders. Like if more people actually considered the Contenders route, you'd have these Contenders rosters in collegiate that kind of solve that problem for them. Well, yeah. It's like...
Well, Maryville tried that, right? Maryville they were in trials once and they just lost. And from my understanding was like they just didn't have time because they had to balance their TESPA matches and also their Contenders matches, which was too hard. So I think TESPA would have to coordinate like schedule wise to not interfere with Contenders and the other way around as well, right?
Potentially. I wasn't actually aware of that.
We had Guru on our team on Bermuda, remember? And so he was literally like, he couldn't play almost any of our Contenders matches because he was busy. Obviously, when you're going to college, when they're paying for you to go to college there, you can't just say, oh, guys, sorry, I've got something else to do. Like, so the players that are in collegiate always have to prioritize their TESPA matches over Contenders. So the only way for that to happen would really, for that to work would be if TESPA and Contenders was sort of coordinated some way where the schedule didn't interfere.
Yeah,
which would be easy enough, I guess, to do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely feasible. Might be some coordination on Blizzard end of things or some coordination on TESPA end of things, but I think that's definitely a very feasible solution, and it's altogether just so much better for players. Yeah. So I think it's also just like players just, I don't know. It comes down to players just needing to be willing to go to collegiate, really. Because that's when the conversation really starts, when you have a good enough collegiate roster to compete in Contenders.
Yeah. It's going to be tough because of the scheduling. Like, not only TESPA matches, but like players that are in collegiate programs, they'll tell you like they also have to test. I mean, they still also have to go to school. So trying to go to college full time, even if they make it easy for you to do so and cut your classes in half and also compete at the highest level is very difficult to do. But I think it's possible. And I think at the very least, I've always said this, like, if you're a player and you're college age, you should definitely try to also get into a collegiate program while you're playing. I think in general, in any game you compete in, if there's a collegiate path, you should probably look into it because it's going to benefit you beyond your career and as a player, hypothetically.
And no matter what game it is, that transitioning into that collegiate program will only legitimize it even more, and that could bring about the format in traditional sports where players are scouted from collegiate, and it's like you're helping people legitimize what they already have while getting an education. It's just, if enough people do it, it will help. Like you will get there. So.
Do you think, I wonder if you have any opinion on whether or not OWL teams should get involved with collegiate directly, or if it's just, because obviously the way that OWL teams scout, as you know, is you basically ignore, it doesn't really matter where you're scouting from. You just try to find the best player, whether it's ladder or it's contenders or it's collegiate teams or whatever. But like, I wonder if there's a future where you could see that actually being involved in a collegiate program, it could be beneficial to you long-term, developing and scouting talent.
I haven't really put too much thought into it.
I think Philadelphia Fusion partnered with Harrisburg, but I don't think they're necessarily. Well, they're obviously not really involved with them from a scouting perspective. It's more just a support. Like they give them money or something. I don't know, but I do wonder if like there's a way where like maybe Vancouver Titans, for instance, could like get involved with, I don't know, University of Vancouver or something. I don't know what kind of schools they got up there, but being involved locally with the college programs might be good for the professional teams long term. I don't know.
I think it's a possibility. It's not something that I've really considered, so I'd have to look into it. But
fair enough.
I really wouldn't have an answer on that end.
Fair enough. Speaking of Vancouver, I guess. Because we talked a lot about second one. We didn't really talk a lot about the Titans, dude. Coming in, I did say that, like, obviously coming into the league last season, sort of getting picked up in the middle of the season, was obviously pretty difficult. Like, can you reflect on last season and how you felt about the way last season went overall, and what kind of changes are you guys looking to make this year, just sort of as the way that you operate heading into the season, so that you can come in full steam ahead?
Yeah. I'll predominantly focus on staff stuff because player stuff we're kind of adjusting as we go.
Of course.
When it comes to staffing, I think us as staff were caught off guard with how meta changing everything is from week to week. Because when you're in Contenders, you were doing bans, but you were doing it every other week because you only competed every other week. So you had this 2-week period where you could scrim and get used to whatever the meta was. For that first 2 months, really, it was very consistent, or maybe it was 1 month. Anyway, there was a certain time period where it was like 1 week bans, and it was pretty consistent in where we'd practice like something Monday through Wednesday, and then on Thursday it would just be like there was this mass transition from everyone. Everyone was just like, okay, this is the new comp, we're all playing this. And we get on to Thursday and we just be like, well, time to learn a new comp by tomorrow, because everyone has kind of shifted to this Thursday comp, and it's better than whatever we're running. So
yeah,
this was quite consistent for a little bit every Thursday, and everyone had kind of had like XYZ amount of months, like I think it was like 4 months prior, maybe 3 anyway. But they had a certain amount of time to get used to this kind of format where you really only had 2 days of coaching. We were not used to that. We were, well, for one, in Contenders, you can really get away with playing anything. You can play Rush every single week and you'll be fine. But it didn't work like that when we got into OWL. It was take these 2 days, learn how to best play this comp, and then we're gonna roll with it. And where we really excelled in Contenders was kind of having these comps that we could refine better than anyone else. We could make everyone like work as a team better, and these quick transitions into comps was not what we were used to. We would going to next season is like we kind of, well, for one, they switched to the 1 month format where it was 2 weeks on bans and 2 weeks without. Even then, towards the end, for the first week specifically, I think I don't remember 1 week it was, but I think it was the first time a new ban change hit along with a new patch, and literally there are different scrim groups, and literally every scrim group, like the people who scrimmed different teams towards the end of that week, all showed up onto that Saturday with different comps, and we were all just like, okay, well, this is how patch and ban weeks are going to go together, I guess. And we got more used to it, and I think now that we're more prepared for it, the goal for our off season at least is to have these standard comps that we can practice preseason, and so that you don't necessarily get surprised into a ban week. I don't know. That might not even be a realistic goal because meta changes and balance changes and what's it called? Balance mixed with ban changes. Maybe it's not even feasible, but it's something that I'd like to give a shot at least, so that it never happens where it's just that Thursday and we're just like, well,
yeah,
we got to learn a whole new comp. The goal is kind of just, if that does happen, we have this fallback comp that we were practiced in preseason to get used to. And to a certain extent, other teams kind of had that too, where it's just kind of like, well, I guess if this comp isn't what we're running this week, they kind of already had that experience from previous weeks as a team to kind of fall back on it, which is what we're looking to have this coming season. I think that'll help in itself.
Yeah. I think like last season was so hard. I remember even in Contenders with the hero bans when they started implementing that, it's nearly impossible to really prep for matches. Because you don't know what heroes you're playing. Like you said, you get like maybe 2 days to practice. If you really go hard, you get 2 days of practice. So really, everyone just has to kind of rely on their ingenuity and like try to just counter what they're seeing. And I think I wonder, for a team like yours, obviously you guys, a lot of the guys that are on the team together. It's not like you guys are bringing over a huge core into this next season, right? You guys are rebuilding pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I mean, you're bringing Rolf back, you're bringing Dalton back, my boys, of course, best in the business. But I wonder, like, if you guys are going to change the way that you practice a lot to try to make up time on these other cores that have been around together for a long time to have an advantage over them.
Yeah, we're definitely looking to get down like early on in the off season of just like dive, spam, and rush. Like those are the cores of like every comp that you're going to see in Overwatch, and just like how to be a cohesive unit in each of the comps is just something that we're looking to get down early in off season, and then that in itself will be miles better than whatever we had last season, because we had like spam one week and we were just like, okay, let's learn how to be cohesive unit in spam, and by the time you learn that, you're not really even refining to be this roster or a competitive roster. And then when dive came around, we had to teach how to be a cohesive unit in dive, and then it was just we were months behind other teams,
right? And
I think just getting that down in the off season will definitely help us catch up to teams and be far more competitive this next season.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you guys will be a lot more competitive this season. Literally, just give you guys like 1 month, and you guys will be as competitive, like way more like than last year. I know that. Yeah. I know that's the case. I wonder, like, another one of the big challenges, obviously, of running a team right now in general in any sport is having to do everything online, working virtually from home because of COVID travel restrictions and stuff. I mean, do you guys plan on trying to go out of your way more this year to put together some sort of, facility setup or to boot camp together fairly often? Or are you guys going to try to do a lot of your work just from home?
The goal will be to be in Vancouver this season, pending visas and whatnot, but likely we'll be in Vancouver.
Yeah, I think that'll give you a huge advantage, unless, of course, maybe the league's already dictated to you guys that you guys all have to be together. But I know in the COD League, people are planning on to play from home. Not everyone's going to be in facilities.
I believe it'll be the same setup for us this season. I think, I don't want to speak for other teams actually.
Of course, yeah.
But for us at least, we'll be in a singular location. I don't know that I don't believe it's mandated by the league though.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I don't think it is for COD either. That's why I was just curious, like what you guys' plan was, because some teams obviously would opt to save money and to save the headache by just like staying home, playing all online. But I do think that you guys would have a huge advantage if you work from a central location this year.
Yeah.
And maybe everyone does. Obviously, some teams have big facilities, but yeah, like as soon as you guys get in a facility, like if you guys get a full-time facility from the start of the year, I really think there's nothing holding you guys back this season. Because
there were definitely some matches last season where we looked very competitive, and we had players on like 200 ping.
200 ping, I know, yeah.
It's like I think just having that time to actually prep these comps as well as being all in a singular location will definitely make us far more competitive. It'll be a good season, I think.
Yeah,
it'll be much better than people expect, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it will be. Well, listen, man, I had fun talking to you today. Sorry, it's got like real dark in my room during the course of this podcast. I guess people listening won't see, but Jesus Christ, it looks like I'm in a closet now. But yeah, look, I'm really glad that you came on the show today, man. It's really nice to catch up with you like this and talk a little bit about Overwatch. I think there's a lot of work to be done in the Overwatch scene if we want to see the scene succeed, and I think you're in a perfect position to start doing so with your team in Western Overwatch, man. And I have really high hopes for you guys this year, man. So don't disappoint me, dude.
I have really high hopes too. So I'm definitely not trying to disappoint myself.
Well, that's good news, man. Before we go, do you have anything that you want to plug or anything? Obviously, Vancouver socials is a no-brainer, but is there any final parting words you want to give before we end the show today?
Not really. In terms of Vancouver socials, we have our Twitter at Vancouver Titans. I would plug my own Twitter, but you're not going to get anything out of it, so there's no point.
No, we've already been plugging it, man. It's been hovering over your face the whole time.
Oh, perfect. Well, follow me for, we'll call it daily tweets.
Do you tweet daily?
I think
weekly.
No, maybe once every couple months. But yeah, it's been a good talk.